Hello, everybody, and welcome to Divine Renovation's online event from the trenches. We are just so excited that you are here and that you are joining us today. Please do put in the chat where you are joining us from. It is always just such a joy for us to see so many different places represented. And I don't know if it's just me, but I love being able to recognize different places and even recognize that, wow, you're not that far away. So I just love how the Lord really is just working right now. And it would be great for you just to share some of where you're at so that we can start to build that community. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your yes for this next hour of your time. We have a lot of great content for you today, and we have some really great speakers that I'm so excited that you get to witness and to hear what they've been doing. But just before we start, we're just going to start with a moment of prayer. So if you'll join me in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit. Lord Jesus, we thank you. We thank you for the blessings of today. We thank you for the gift that it is to gather as a community online. So we thank you for the gift of this technology that makes it possible for us to connect from so many different places. We just pray that you send down your Holy Spirit, that you would renew these dry bones that we are, that you would help us to come alive in ways that we don't even know are possible. We thank you that you just have such a desire for your church to be fully alive. And Lord, we pray that we can just press into that today. We pray for just a great openness of our own hearts to receive all that you have for us. Amen. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So welcome everybody to our From the Trenches online event for parish leaders. It is so good that you are here. My name is Rebecca Hickel, and I work as part of the Divine Renovation USA Regional Office. Today we also have the Canadian office that are joining us. So I love that we decided that we did that for our last one and it worked so well. We're just going to keep going with it. So it's wonderful to have so many of you here. Divine Renovation has a mission to serve parishes across the globe, to move from maintenance to mission. It started 5 years ago with Father James Mallon at his parish in Nova Scotia in Canada, and it's just continued to grow. Parishes across the world are being inspired by the Holy Spirit to look at a different way of doing things and are having the courage to implement those changes. We hope that by doing events like this, that we can offer a glimpse into how other parishes on the journey are doing and what they are doing. And we hope just for that shared learning and encouragement. So as we dive in, I'm just going to invite Kurt Clement to the floor. Kurt is the director of the Divine Renovation USA team. So he and I work very closely together. And you're very excited to be joining us here today, Kurt.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Rebecca, and welcome back from across the pond. And so welcome.
It's a great gift to spend some time with my family. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good. I'm really excited. I'm excited about all these topics, but I'm really excited about this topic. And I want to invite on my friend Eric Myatt and my counterpart in Canada. So hey, it's good to have you back, Eric. It's fun to, we started this as a US thing, but now I think it's more of a North America, although we have some people from Portugal, which is awesome too. So there's always a little global flavor with Divine Renovation, isn't there?
Yeah, thanks, Kurt, and welcome everybody. Canada kind of crashed the From the Trenches party here, so welcome everybody from Canada, and it's great to be here. We got a Canadian guest on today, so I'm pumped up about this topic too.
Yeah, well, and obviously there's some parishes in Canada doing some really amazing things, so it's nice to be able to tell stories from some of the parishes on this journey of renewal from Canada, like Father Michael today. So yeah, so Eric, this topic, I'm excited about it. Less is more. I think, I was a part of a really big active parish for many years, and that was often a badge of honor was, how many ministries we had. It'd kind of be like, hey, we have 100+ ministries, or that can be a common mantra, and obviously that can be a beautiful sign of fruitfulness. But at the same time, it can be potentially problematic if there's not focus and there's not movement towards a missional direction. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Obviously, less is more, the idea of setting priorities in parish ministry. And so I'm excited to talk about that with you. I went and visited a church in Concord, New Hampshire, Christ the King, a few weeks ago. And when I walked up to the parish, they handed me this welcome packet, and it was beautiful. I mean, in the packet, there's their monthly magazine and all kinds of beautiful content. But what stood out to me was the parish had just a clear vision. I mean, you could see right when you opened it up, here's what we're about. Here's our vision. And then you opened up and you could see, here's their plan. Here's their priorities. You know, it wasn't just a big kind of bulletin with a bunch of things just disorganized. I mean, it was very clear. There was focus. And then as a result, as I got to know the parish for over a couple of days, there was a leadership gathering on Saturday that I was able to be a part of. And I was amazed at how, like, the staff, the leaders, everybody there, I was like, everybody was really like moving in the same direction. You know, there was alignment. And it reminded me, one of my mentors has always told me that the role of leadership, the primary task of leaders, is to bring clarity of the vision and clarity of the priorities. And I'd always heard that, but then I saw that in living color in that visit, that that was a part of the reason that there was this tangible experience of culture, was partially because they had clarity of vision and clarity of priorities.
Yeah. That clarity is so important. That's why this conversation today, everybody, is so critical, especially around priorities, because you may have heard that saying, like, if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. I've actually heard that priority was never meant to be used in a plural way, like there's a priority. But we realize it's easier said than done to prioritize certain efforts or programs at a church. And so that's why we want to focus in on have this from the trenches conversation around some of these really critical topics and how they play out in terms of what you say yes to and, you know, what you say no to, because there's so many steps in some of the programs that perhaps some of you run, like your discipleship groups or your evangelization tool, like Alpha or other programs. It means that really good programs or studies, other ones aren't maybe emphasized as much. And that means how it's communicated, or whether it'll be at a mass announcement or what gets featured on your social channels, this kind of thing. So your main priority will be the focus or those top 2 or 3 priorities that are really, really critical. So just as we get going here, I wanted to ask if you could go to the chat. I'm just curious to hear and get everybody to chime in here as we get going and think about and focus on these priorities in the trenches. So basically, like, if in the chat, if you could put it 2 or 3 words. So if someone from a faraway land, say, visited your parish and spent a couple of weeks kind of observing, you know, they looked at your activities, heard how people talked at your parish, maybe were able to study your budget or your spending. What's maybe 2 or 3 words that would describe your parish right now? Like, what would be those priorities that would come up for someone visiting and kind of peeking in on what you were doing? So maybe pick 2, 3, or 4 words you can use, I suppose, about what an observer from the outside looking in would see as your lived out priorities in the parish. So just pop those in the chat here as we get going, and we'll continue on. It'll be great to see everybody's take on that. Okay, great. Yeah, keep it coming. And so, yeah, this is a big challenge because it's about changing parish culture in some ways to try to make evangelization a greater priority, which is a topic for today. So we might recall the image from the Gospels around pruning that's used in scriptures. Of course, pruning is the goal is to produce more fruitfulness, and cutting back. You don't only remove the dead branches, but sometimes you got to get even some of the good branches pruned so that the branches can bear even more fruit. So how do we hone in on those things that are bearing a disproportionate amount of fruit, even by pruning things that are good, but for the better, the things that bear more fruit.
Yeah, that's the real tension there is as we start to prioritize. And I mean, it's easier said than done, right? Like pruning, we talk about pruning and that image, and we need to prune in our ministries. But when you actually try to prune in parish ministries, it's easier said than done, which is why I love the guests that we have today. But I wanted to mention one other aspect of this, there's a book that I love. It's called The Simple Church. And in this book, The Simple Church, they basically do a survey of all the churches in, I think, the United States. It might be North America. I think it's the United States. And they say at over 300,000 churches, 95% of those churches are in decline, and 5% are growing. Now, it does even draw a distinction. It says many of the growing churches are just growing because they're in growing areas. They're not growing because they're really healthy and intentional. They're just kind of in an area that's growing. But there's a smaller percentage of really intentional, healthy, growing churches. And as they tried to research, like,
oh, Kurt, I think we lost you. Or is it just me? No? Okay.
program centered.
He's back. Kurt, you cut out there for a second. Are you still with us here?
Wow, I just dropped off.
You're back, man.
What else here? Well, they were, I don't know where I was, but they were, when they looked at the different churches in decline versus churches that are growing, that the churches in decline were program centered. We have all these mini programs, and the focus was to get involved. And to the contrary, the churches that were thriving or healthy or growing, intentional churches, they were process centered. So they distinguish program centered versus process centered. And that the growing churches were focused on discipleship with a process for taking a first step and a next step. It was focused on moving people along a process of discipleship. So it was really interesting, and they talked about some of the differences in how people communicate and everything. So anyway, that's just another thing and I think this is why a lot of churches that we work with end up developing a discipleship pathway, which I think, some of our guests have done some work with and like to feature is kind of part of the process of going from very disjointed mini ministries to something that has a little bit more direction process involved. So these are just some of the principles that we're going to be breaking open in our time together today. So Eric, we ready to go? We ready to dive down in?
Ready to roll. And throughout the discussion, everyone, please do pop your questions that might come to mind during the conversation into the chat. I'll be collecting them and trying to categorize them a little bit for Q&A towards the end of the session. So do pop them into the chat as we're rolling here, and I'll try to bring up as many guys as we can towards the end of the conversation. Let's go.
Well, good. Well, welcome on Father Michael Leclerc and Margot Morin. And we'll also be joined shortly by Father Robert Murray, who is celebrating a funeral. So yeah, Father Michael, you just introduce yourself and where you're from.
Yeah, I'm, well, you said my name, so I don't have to say that again, but I'm from Montreal. I'm the pastor of a parish here called St. Ignatius of Loyola. I been in part of the Divine Renovation, it's changed names, network and ministry and whatever, all these iterations since the get-go, I guess, of the ministry. And been getting coaching from DR since that beginning as well, and that's been borne tons and tons of fruit in our parish, I think.
Yeah, I love the testimony video. We'll have to share that at some point, where you shared how you looked back and saw there wasn't an adult baptism in your parish since like the 70s, I think it was.
Yeah. Before I went to St. Benedict's Parish, it was it's for a 6-month internship. It was 78 was the last adult baptism in my parish, and then I'm proud to say. So we're looking at our at this Easter, probably well over a dozen people this year.
Wow.
So that's it's been growing each year, and we want to have multiple RCIA programs, even though we don't want to call it RCIA because nobody, not even Catholics, know what that acronym stands for. So let alone people who would actually be part of an RCIA program. So we've changed the name, and but yeah.
Well, be sure to check out the last month's From the Trenches was on RCIA, and that was actually for anybody joining us last week. We talked about RCIA, and there was a great discussion. So we post all these on YouTube. So very cool. So Margot, welcome. I had the opportunity to meet Margot in person a few weeks ago, and so happy to introduce you to the community like this.
Good to be here. I'm here from Salem, Massachusetts. We're just recovering from Halloween weekend here, cleaning the streets and sending everyone home. So it's the calm after the storm. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Oh man! And your role in the parish is what again?
I'm a pastoral associate, which is Catholic word for kind of a little bit of everything. But we've been fans of Divine Renovation since around 2016. And then my pastor and I came up to the conference in 2018, and that was when we joined the association and really got on board. So this parish has really benefited from all the good things that DR has provided.
Yeah, I'm so impressed. That was on the same trip where I went to New Hampshire, and it was the same kind of thing where there was clarity of vision and clarity of priorities. So I guess maybe just starting with you, Margot, how do you guys, like, just on that first point that I made about having, when you think about having priorities, then it needs to be tied to your vision, clarity of vision, clarity of priorities. I guess just starting with your vision, how do you guys communicate your vision? What is your vision, and how do you communicate that?
We really have a mission for healing and hospitality. This is a city that's been through a lot, has been through a lot of spiritual trauma, and we know that healing needs to happen here, and we're perfectly poised to offer it. The goal is evangelization, but I think the front edge of that is healing. And the front edge of healing is actually hospitality, just welcoming people where they're at. So it started with prayer to discern that, to ask God how exactly God wanted us to act and move in the city of Salem. And as far as communicating, we do all the things, all the usual things, but bulletin, we designed a pathway, we promote everything. But I think almost as value or maybe more valuable is we communicate our vision and our mission by what we say yes to and what we say no to, which things we respond to, whether we respond to are more likely to respond to complaints, which we are not, or whether we're more likely to respond to people who are trying to go deeper in discipleship and want to do that in the context of the parish. So we're teaching not just with our words, but with how we act in the world and in the parish.
Yeah, and I can't remember even on your website what your actual vision statement is. I think it is tied to, it mentions healing and hospitality, but for me, it was even more evident to me just in the conversations, like with Father Murray. He was like, if it's not about healing, it's about sharing Jesus and healing. If it's not about evangelization and healing, we're not doing it. Like that's just, he made it clear, this is what we are about. Here's our vision of our parish. So that was really cool to see. What about you, Father Michael? What do you guys have a vision, and how do you communicate that?
We do. It's evolved over the years. It's gotten bigger, I would say, because as we've grown, we realize we need to have that vision grow as well. So we want to be a welcoming spiritual home for people. But like any family home, we expect people to grow in that home. We expect people to be open to growth, to continue to grow spiritually. And we want to send them out. We do not want to keep them at home. We want to be able to, you don't raise your kids so that they're going to stay home with you the rest of your, well, maybe some people do, but I can't imagine I don't think that's healthy. Like you want to be able to send those people out into the world to make to be multipliers, and to go out and so we use the idea of a multiplying missionary disciple, but that can be jargonish. So you don't really want to express that as part of a vision when you're talking about it. That sort of language we'll use internally, but but we want to. I think that making that welcoming home and having where people grow. So like Margot was saying, that hospitality is a key element for us. Especially at that front end, that first encounters with people, we want to offer them steps in growth, whether that's alpha into groups ministry, serving in some way, and with the ultimate goal is that this is not simply for them. It is meant to be shared. It is meant to be gone to send out. We want to start having multi-site or go. Church planting and things like that as a result of that, and sending people out intentionally to go and form another spiritual home somewhere in our city or elsewhere.
Great. So you welcome people, you want to build them up, but you want to definitely be ordered towards the sending of that. That's in your DNA. That's the vision you have.
So that process part that you were talking about, Kurt, really resonates. It's like we have to, you can't. Sometimes making a missionary disciple can happen in a number of ways, but that doesn't mean that we can offer 17 different ways to make a missionary disciple. We can't invest in that many different ways. We have to choose pathways for that we're going to prioritize, that we're going to propose to people to build them into missionary disciples. But we work with there are other groups that do these things as well, and they have their own processes and pathways to forming missionary disciples, and we'll partner with them in some ways when we can, and we'll encourage and we'll welcome people wherever they are in that pathway. If they're already missionary disciples when they come to us, they're great. Let's figure out how we can multiply you, and send you out. But that's but we have to pick a pathway in a sense.
Is that something you guys have? So kind of with the vision and
it's something we are growing into.
Yeah.
Like we're learning how to do that, I think, more and more.
Yeah. And what about you, Margot? You mentioned having a discipleship pathway. What's a way of basically saying, okay, here's your vision, and so that here's our strategy based on that vision. So what's that look like for you?
Yeah, honestly, we had the pathway before we knew it. We looked at our programming that we had and realized that there was a pretty distinct walk through it that a person could do from the minute they kind of encounter us to be the next steps. And we already were really intentional about always knowing what was next for a person. So every program that we offer, we always know the next thing. We're always in the last night of whatever alpha we're talking about, beta, which is our small group process. We're inviting them into the next thing anyway. And so it was more sort of instead of like imagining a pathway, we really organized what we offer to fit into a process. But then we got rid of the things that didn't fit into that pathway, that really weren't directly related to helping someone move forward in discipleship. So it was a bit of organizing what we had and then getting rid of the things that were distracting.
I want to hear about that process. that pruning, it sounds like took place. But I do have from my packet from my visit to Christ the King is this is their discipleship pathway. Now, this is more of like an internal that you guys had, that it basically outlines 6 major steps, all ordered around worship. But one thing that's really cool about this is you also have goals associated with each step. So the percentage of people that you're trying to get to alpha from the outside, or, how many small groups, but it's really cool. You have measurements tied to each of the steps. So I think it is on your website as well, your discipleship pathway.
It is. And that metrics is really, Divine Renovation really helped us get started in gathering metrics, which has been really helpful for us, because if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, and there's no actual measurable progress, that's where we look when it's time to simplify again. So knowing whether we're meeting goals has been really helpful for us to maintain and tweak that pathway.
Yeah. So I think Father Murray is here with us. Hello, Father Murray, are you here?
Yes, I am. Yep.
All right. Well, we'll get you spotlighted here.
Oh boy.
So, hey, welcome, Father Murray. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Kurt. Thank you.
So yeah, Father Murray and Margot are at the same parish in Salem. And so, Father Murray, we've been just talking about vision, first of all, and then the idea of setting priorities, talking a little bit about your discipleship pathway. Mm-hmm. So part of this is like less is more, and that movement towards being more focused. And that's, like we said, easier said than done. Can maybe each one of you share about an experience of pruning, or maybe emphasizing certain things where other things weren't emphasized as much, and like what was that like? So Father Michael, why don't you start, and then we'll I think Margot and Father Murray, you have a couple of examples, so you could each share. You guys are getting pretty good at this. So, Father Michael, are there any things that come to mind over your years as you become to get more focused, of some things you've pruned along the way?
There are certain things that we definitely had to prune, certain ministries and things along those lines. That was difficult. It was, when we wanted to change our style of worship, we changed the choir, or the music ministry at certain masses, and that's always something tough to manage, and to that change management element in there is really difficult. A priest friend of mine here in the city tried to do something similar at a little bit after we did, and it really tore the parish apart, like in for a while there. And so that's something that we deliberately tried to manage the change in that, and prune back the ministries that were not going to be, that where we didn't see the right type of leadership there. We didn't see the right development that we wanted in that, and growth in there. So there were things like that. There were some ministries that sort of died out, because we weren't supporting them anymore. I remember I'm trying to remember if this is from Father James or not, but he talked about, like there are some ministries, he compared it to a house, let's say in the bayou in Louisiana, where you have to, it's on these big pillars, and then that are rooted down in the ground. And every once in a while, those pillars start to rot. And sometimes you tie a new pillar right next to it, and you sort of lash it together, and the old one will end up rotting out, but that new pillar is the one that's supporting everything. And then sometimes the pillars goes too far gone, you have to actually cut it out and replace it. And I think that sort of, he used that analogy, I think, to with some ministries, and a lot of them, we sort of just lashed in a new pillar there, and that one that we wanted to see, that we felt was in the right direction, and let the other one die out a little bit. But there are some times when you actually have to replace those ministries, and that's the harder piece to manage, I think.
And didn't you say, well, I'd like to come back to that actually, that maybe here in a minute, is the idea of like the change management process, because it's a culture shift that's massive. And so the pruning isn't just starting on day one and starting to cut things. I mean, there is a process. And I think the example you gave of the other parish, how it really broke the parish apart, like there's a leadership element to this, leading change, communicating the why. And I want to come back to that, maybe what that process has looked like for you and the others, but let's just maybe stay on the this idea of like, what's an example of something you actually pruned, Father Bob? Maybe you could share, like, we talked about it in theory, but like on the ground and in reality, what does that look like at Mary Queen of the Apostles?
Okay. Thanks, Kurt. Hello, everybody. So I think our biggest change, and I think I'd like to give this to Margot, actually, because she actually was on the ground and did it, and which was to change our religious education model. And it actually changed before I got here, but we've been changing into, we've been continuing to call people to this new model. Most recently, we're a bilingual parish, and so we just now are helping the Latino community to come on board with this model, to stop making it kind of child-centric and making it more adult-centric for religious education, with the notion that from our faith that parents are the first teachers of their children in the ways of faith. And so with that, I think I'll hand it over to my colleague Margot and let her explain, because she was the one who has went through this change, and it was, I know, difficult. And so I'll let her, I think she should be the one who talks about it. Then I can come back and talk a little bit about something else, actually, from the administration point of view. Margot.
Yes, probably 7 years ago, we changed our whole faith formation system. We had a big, busy, child-centered CCD program that we cut out because we wanted to focus on adults. We really believe that adults are the best formers of their families, whatever those families look like. We know that we can't do in a CCD classroom what a family can do 100% of the time. So we decided to put our resources and our energy into supporting adults' faith, really helping adults become disciples so that they could share that with others, especially their own kids. We didn't stop doing programming for kids, but everything we do for kids is actually centered on their adult people. So that was a big change. It happened faster than we expected it to, because the person who was directing CCD left unexpectedly. So I have a sticky next to my desk that says, "Never let a crisis go to waste." And we're sort of forced to take advantage of that timing and made a big change. And it was, I will be honest, I'm going to say brutal, because people are really fond of what they're used to, and they like to look back at things that helped them or made them feel comfortable or happy. And to make a change like that is asking people to rewrite their stories or to try new stories. And that's not a gentle process, as gentle as we try to make it. But we've never regretted that decision. We've never looked back and thought, oh, where are those kids? Because they weren't here to begin with. And thus, I know we could go into a whole faith formation thing. We won't. But
I think that'd be a future topic. But I think, your pruning here is pruning ineffective models. So the mission doesn't change, but our methods need to be updated. Because I think you were telling me that you had 200 and something kids in First Communion, and you realized only 14 of the families went to Mass.
Yeah.
And so you restructured, and now 100% go to Mass because of the change in the way you're doing it. Can you share more about that?
Much smaller group, still about 14 families, but they were fully, engaging. And so we realized that so many hours were spent propping up a system that we actually knew wasn't effective, and we couldn't really justify that anymore. And we have never looked back.
I'd say, Margot, I really love the fact that you're like, you talked about things that you're measuring, that you sort of learned that from Divine Renovation. We did as well, as like that. The idea of what it is it's not how many kids go into these programs that we should be measuring, but what's the outcome that we like, how many of them are, starting to develop a prayer life, and, like there's things that you can, come to Mass regularly, like engage in the parish, the families do. Those are things that we should be measuring rather than the absolute numbers of kids going through there. And that's, and when we start to shift that focus, then it becomes easier to make the decisions around what we should be changing and what we shouldn't. in the stark reality, I remember talking to parents about that, and it says, look, you send your kids here for, I guess you call it CCD in the States. We had different names for it, but it's like you send them here 1 hour a week, or whatever your program is. You have them for 167 other hours a week. Who has the bigger impact? Let's where is that? That presenting reality, I think, to people is a big part of this as well. Is being able to actually, so that they can understand the why that we're doing. That you wanted to have those kids grow in their faith and actually come to know Jesus in some way. And so that's why you're changing it. It's not because you want to be mean, that's
yeah.
Yeah. And I actually want to recommend a book by Carrie Newhoff that we basically slept with it under our pillow. It was called Leading Change Without Losing It. And it's almost entirely highlighted my copy. But one of the things that we keep mentioning to each other is the math. Do the actual math. How many people are speaking against your decision versus how many people are actually coming along with you and putting your resources, where they are most effective.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I know you guys take some pretty bold steps to what you're expecting the parents if they want to do it, or there's some programs you require alpha. I mean, you're just all in. Father Bob, I don't know if you were going to add on to that. I memean, I love the example, of course, the example with some of the other programs in the church where you made some bold choices.
Sure. No, I would just say that I think it's been, I thought it was extraordinarily brave. It happened before I got here, but it's continued to be lived out. And I think it continues to be, a good move on our part. Yeah. To try to measure engagement versus, how many kids pass through for First Communion. It's a good number. It's nice to have that stuff, but it's not an honest number in my opinion. And speaking of other dishonest numbers, so when I got here, we had a big honkin' bingo. And it's important to know that the proceeds are about 20% of our budget. So it came out to like $120,000 a year from bingo. And over the pandemic, as we're looking at Divine Renovation, what we're doing, we decided to cut it out. And so, and I remember, actually, I don't know if Margot remembers this, but there was a parish a little bit north of us, and the people were thinking about Divine Renovation. And when you could see the look on the pastor's face when I said, "Yeah, we dropped bingo, $120,000 a year." I thought he was going to fall off his chair. But here's the good news: that God watches over us. And we no sooner had done that than we signed a contract for leasing a couple of buildings, getting how much? $120,000 a year. So, God is with us in all things. And I think trusting him, but I think it's a result, that decision is a result of the fact that we're thinking, okay, let's everyone come here and gamble wildly on Saturday night and then get in church and let's try to form saints. So on Sunday. And so it just doesn't work. And so we just decided that we're not going to do that. We also dropped, another income source for us, which is a Christmas bazaar, which on the surface sounds great and they can be wonderful. But this one was, if you really want that bicycle for your son, you're going to have to buy 60 or 70 lottery tickets for it, chances. And so to load the bucket in your favor. So again, we decided to, I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear that, but we decided to shut that down. It wasn't faith engaging. As a matter of fact, it was kind of frightening to hear, Father, this is an important thing because we all get together once a year and see each other. Well, you could try Sunday Mass. And that was a very, again, the people who did it originally, I mean, they're good people, but I just think that however it went off the rails, the whole notion of that particular experience was not, in alignment with our values and with where we want to go. Certainly gambling wouldn't be part of a missional parish, I don't think. And so we just trusted that God would watch over us. And we cut that out, and we not only do we get that lease, but we've also received a couple of big bequests. I mean, we're very fortunate. We're very, very blessed here with the finances in many ways. Sometimes we struggle, but we're also very blessed, I think. And so, but we trust God, and we, it wasn't part of our mission. So that's one thing that I think that we decided to do. We also decided, and Margot can jump in on this too. We also decided to drop our vigil mass, our 4:00 vigil mass on Saturday, because we have two churches, and one of them seats 1,000, one seats 400, and neither of them were full ever, except at Christmas and Easter. And so what we've begun to do is take a look at how we use our facilities. And, we have one building where we hope to grow into the other church across the town. It has better parking, but it's huge. It costs a lot of money to maintain and to heat. And so for 90 people, and they spread themselves out, they look like measles in the church. And so we just doesn't again correspond with our mission of trying to build the community. And if we don't need that size building, then why use it in that way?
It's a great microcosm. It's a great microcosm of the bigger issue of less is more, right? If we try to, it reminds me of the Pareto principle. If you've ever heard of that, it's the 80-20. You can try to do 10 things. You can come up with 10 great ideas, but if you try to do all 10, you're going to barely move the needle. But there's probably 2 things that if you really do well, will have the greatest, disproportional fruitfulness. But when you think about the microcosm of a church and the number of masses, pruning back the number of masses, I mean, that's a really bold choice. And that's one thing that struck out for me in my visit with you, even talking about bingo, is you were so clear, man. If it's not somehow moving us towards evangelization and healing, I'm not going to do it. So you had a vision of what you wanted for the parish, but there was also a strong sense of like discontent with the status quo. I mean, I remember you saying, you feel like we're just kind of circling the drain, and you made a decision. I'm not just going to circle the drain. And so from that, there's a lot of courage, I think, that it was so clear to make some bold choices. So in making some of these bold choices, I think there's it's doing it well, right? I mean, you can't just go cutting things. I want to go back to that point of like change management. Once you kind of get in your mind of some things to prune, or how did you go about that, Father Michael? Like, what does change management look like?
So I think the first thing we have to accept is that change, whether it's for the good or not, as I think Margot alluded to or said, it's like it's going to upset people. That's it's just and so understanding that you need to not. In changing things, you have to explain the why. It's always, go to the why. And also at the same time, honoring what has been done in the past. Just because, something, the CCD program or whatever, or that 4:30, that vigil mass, whatever time that was, that vigil mass was, just because it's now not serving its purpose, it's not achieving what you wanted to achieve, doesn't mean that it never did. Doesn't mean that it was bad. Right. And so you need to honor that, give people time to mourn, and then, but always giving them the why you're going to make the change, why you need to do this. And I think doing that, we've, sort of like Father Bob mentioned, we had to cut out a lot of the fundraising things, the outside groups who came in to fundraise and make announcements and speak at the end of Mass. Cutting all of that out was, these are people who were doing good work, something really good work in the community, sometimes good work around the world. But we decided we can't. And then somebody said, like your Father, you're holding us hostage here to these outside groups, like we're having to sit there and listen to somebody come up and ask for money, and essentially, and you're sort of like, you're playing on our goodwill of coming here, and I said, yeah, I guess so. I get his point, but it's sort of like now we had to sort of like, but doesn't mean you can cut everybody out right away. You know, it's like giving them time to say, hey, this is the last time we're gonna be doing this. Next year, explain to why we're moving away from this model, and having all these outside groups here, giving them some thanking them for their service, especially if it was in the community or some good charitable work, honoring that work. That was sort of part of that change management when we're approaching, because most of those people who are coming are essentially parishioners too. They're parishioners, but they have this outside thing that they're passionate about and they want to share with people and raise money for, or something like that. That was it was it was taking more time than I would have liked at times to do that, and honoring the past was a big part of it.
Yeah, we got to be patient. The pace of change, I know for us, we would hear Father James talk about Saint Benedict, and just realizing, if it was just up to me, I would break a lot of things and be moved too fast. And there was this understanding what's possible in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. It does take time. And so Margot and Father Bob, anything to add about like how you approach letting people know, managing change? And then I want to kick it back up to Eric to see if hit a couple quick questions before the end of our time.
Yeah, I think number one is to make sure that you have, that your pastor is locked into the vision. Father Murray is truly faithful to the mission here, and he communicates it well. But as importantly, I think, is to have your leaders on board. Your staff should be onboarded to this mission if they're not already. And if they can't get on board, they need to be managed out of that position of leadership. And that goes all the way down. The ministry leaders, if they're not working toward the mission, then they're working against it, and so you need to get your leaders on board and engaged in the mission before you can expect anyone else to catch fire with it.
Yeah.
I also think too that always being clear about the why, so I guess it's vision casting all the time, and to explain it, and to recognize that, that I'm reading some of the comments. Yeah, there's pushback, and it does take, I would say, I saw one of the questions about the courage there. Yeah, it does. It takes courage to do this. It's a little bit crucifying, but that's all part of the story. So,
I would say one of the things I got, Father Bob, I got pushback. We had somebody ask us to do something in the parish, and to help do something, and we said no. This is very, very recently, and this was near and dear to this woman's heart, and it's a good thing that she was asking. It wasn't a bad thing that she was asking us to do, but internally in our leadership team, we like, in looking at this, we said, I said, this woman hasn't said yes to anything we proposed. She hasn't said yes to Alpha. She hasn't gone into a groups ministry. She hasn't gone to, worship nights we offer. Anything that we've proposed, she said no to. Now she wants us to say yes to the one thing she's proposing. And so, when and looking at it in those terms, it becomes easier to say no to her. Like it's, you don't put it in those terms necessarily, and you don't say it harshly, but but it makes it easier to find the resolve to actually to say no, I think.
Yeah, great point.
It gets back to doing the math.
Yeah.
Eric, man, I know we've probably kind of spoken to some of the questions. Anything stand out? Questions we can kick for a few minutes here with our guests?
It was a great discussion. Yeah, you did address even one question right there, Father Mike, about, there's pruning, but then there's also people who request things of our parish or of our ministries that I'm sure a lot of people on this call has experienced.
Well, and I would say, Eric, the more you go down this road of parish renewal and your parish becomes vibrant and alive, the more you get outside requests all the time, and you have to have, some process to say no to people on a regular basis. The diocese, hey, we'd love your music ministry to come help us with this. Well, that, that's up to them to manage that. We're not going to commit to that for them. And it's sort of, but we really encourage them, hey, this is your priority, is the music ministry in the parish. If you want to do something else, that's on, but, or some other group wants to come and make an announcement or something like that. Hey, how about if you guys do this? And it's sort of like, it's taking us away from our focus, like, and even though sometimes these requests come from the archdiocese, and you have to say no to people in the archdiocese at times too.
Can you all speak a bit more, because this is like the nitty gritty of prioritization, is saying no and cutting stuff out. So how do you pastorally manage that? Like Father Mike, you talked about referring people to other things or giving them more ideas, and then at some point you just say no. So yeah, talk that out and show us that picture you're showing us.
So this picture is like in our meeting room. It's of a Canadian Air Force bomber pilot, I think, if I remember correctly. His name was Les Moore. And so we just have this up in our room, just reminding us, hey, like this is, get rid of everything else. Like, this is, what is the focus, and what do you need to say no to in order to achieve what your goals are, and like I said, you start to get lots more requests to help and to do things. And some, is it aligned with your mission and your vision, is the question you ask.
Part of that too, I think, is giving people a chance to get on board. So we've gotten requests from Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and we've said, great, you absolutely can use our space, but here's what we want you to be greeting at our Sunday masses. Like, come along with us. We're not just renting out our ministry space to you so that you can do your thing. If you're coming in and you're going to be on board with us. Same with Father Murray can talk about the Knights of Columbus just approached us. And Father Murray, you should talk about this, just working with them to be sure that if they're going to be using our resources, they're going to be working toward our mission.
Yeah. Which they have agreed to do, by the way, and that's great. So they all want to pass through Alpha. Anyone who has not been in it, and they're all and they've already begun to, show up to help us in different ways in our parish. The one I would like to point out is we also have part of our mission, our vision is that we would be a parish of evangelization and healing, which is a major part of there's a lot of woundedness here and a whole bunch of different levels. And in January, so we're hosting a little conference for people who are working on deep healing. It's with the 5 keys. If anyone knows the Neil Lozano stuff, we do a lot of that here. And this priest also is connected with a lot of exorcism. We have a satanic temple here in town. So it's very much, I think, part of our mission, we're not defeating Satan here, but we certainly have challenged by him. And so, so that qualifies. So that's an example of an archdiocesan event, a conference that we would welcome, because our healing team is involved in that, interested in that, and I think it'd be good training for them. But more broadly, priests from around the area of the region will be invited to this 3-day conference. And so, I think it's a good example, I think, of saying, at the archdiocesan level, we'd welcome you to come and use our facility, because it does kind of align with our mission of healing, part of our vision of healing here in the parish. And if this helps priests in other ways and healing teams in other areas, then that certainly is an opportunity. It also gives us a little bit of advertising. So I know there's that part of it too. So anyway.
Well, and this is why for Divine Renovation, there is coaching, being networked with other churches. I mean, there is no silver bullet here. There's no quick fix. This is hard work. We come alongside you. Here's principles, what we're learning from other churches. What can this mean for you here? So, I know there's a lot of questions, and we try to follow up with all the questions, and also a link to schedule a one-on-one if we want to just continue the conversation outside of this. So, Father Michael.
I would add, to any of the priests who might be watching, is like, having a leadership team is so crucial to being able to say no, to decide what to prune. Because then, well, first off, you don't feel like it's only on you to decide these things, and you're not, but you also sometimes worry that maybe it's your own prejudice, maybe it's your own arbitrariness on your part or something, or maybe it's because the woman who leads that is she's kind of a nuisance, and like you sort of like you want to prune it, but you think maybe it's personal, maybe it's something I have to purify myself of. But having a leadership team bouncing ideas off of, having them push back, hey, no, if we actually do this, it has to be aligned to our vision. That is so crucial. Such
a great point. Well, thank you guys. Thank you all, Father Murray, Margaret, and Father Michael, for not saying no to joining us this morning. Thank you for your yes to this. I think it's ordered to your mission, to the renewal of the church as a part of your heart, more than just your parish. You're passionate for your church, but you're also passionate for the church. And I appreciate your generosity to bless the broader church in this way. So I want to bring back Rebecca to help make a final few announcements, and then we'll close in prayer.
Yes, just a huge thank you to Father Mike, Father Mary, and Margot just for joining us today. And I've also just loved all of you sharing in the chat, like, we're doing this in our parish and we're doing this in our parish. And just what a great gift that is to have this from the trenches, like you guys in your parish is sharing what is working and what isn't working. So I've loved hearing from our speakers today. Thank you so much for that. Yes, that was such a fascinating conversation. And I love the courage that you have to make brave decisions for that pursuit of better over good. So thank you for your work, and thank you for all of your sharings. And thank you everybody for sharing in the chat today. It's just been great to hear from you. Some announcements before we close in prayer quickly. Our next From the Trenches event will be Tuesday, the 7th of December at 10 a.m. Central Time. So at the same time, first Tuesday of every month, the next one, 7th of December. There is a link to sign up for that event in the chat. So do feel free for that. There will also be a follow-up email that will be coming out later today. That will include all of the links that I'm going to share in the chat right now. So if you miss them, they will be in that email. And we'll also be sending a resource guide. We have like a leadership guide that we prepare for you every month. So that will include some of the quotes, some of the conversation that we spoke through today, as well as some questions for you as a leadership team to discuss and break open some of these concepts so that you can take this back to your parish and you can continue this conversation and hopefully just start to move that needle in the scale of change. So please do keep an eye out for that in the follow-up email. Also, you can share that with a friend. We will be having a recording of this session. I know a couple of you have already asked me that. We will have this recording available after the session. That will be in the follow-up email, but also on the Divine Renovation YouTube channel. So do check that out. We also have some really exciting upcoming events. The first one I wanted to share with you is our USA conference. Kurt, would you like to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, a lot of Divine Renovation was known for the book originally, and this great conference in Halifax where you would go and you didn't just hear great speakers, but you saw real life on the ground from the trenches renewal happening in a community in St. Benedict. Well, and it spurred so much movement. We are going to be hosting the Divine Renovation USA 2022 conference next summer. Father James will be here. We're lining up some other great speakers, great stories from the trenches of renewal. So that's going to be in Dallas, July 18th to 20th of next summer. So we'll be officially launching in the next week to 10 days. So just kind of keep that on your radar. And we're really excited about what this could mean and the opportunity to gather parishes together to continue what we've done here to magnify that times 100, so DRUSA conference coming.
Absolutely. And more of those From the Trenches stories and just being together as a community. We're really excited.
And we welcome our Canadian friends.
Absolutely. We also have another event coming up that's specifically for priests. Eric, would you like to let us know some more about that?
Fathers, next week, it's our priest-only event. We have these occasionally, and it is focused on how to lead when you don't feel like a leader. And it focuses on the unique gifts you have in your priestly ministry and as a baptized man. So it focuses on how do you unlock your own leadership gifts for ministry. If you're a leader, though, the parishioners and the lay people on this call, and your priest isn't here, this would be a great starting point for your priest to kind of dip his toe into divine renovation experience and principles. We'll be inviting people at the end of that call, the priests at the end of that call, to join our Kickstart program, which is an awesome program for priest cohorts. It's our entry coaching cohort. We've had amazing feedback from priests about that. So if your priest hasn't heard about divine renovation, or maybe is just uncertain about, okay, what would it be like? Next week's event is going to be a great just touch point for him to get started, just to explore it. Just say, come to this, Father, and check it out. So yeah, as it says in the chat, there's 2 identical sessions, but they're at different times to accommodate time zones and your priest's availability. And so that's Tuesday, November 9th, as it says in the chat, and Wednesday, November 10th. So we'll send an email out as well, or you can copy that link right away before we end this call and send that to your priest, and fathers, you can join.
Absolutely. Divine Renovation is here to journey with you and your parish. And as Kurt was saying, if you have a desire to continue that conversation, we love to be available for that conversation. You can connect us via social media, but also on the Divine Renovation website, you can book time with both Kurt and Eric if you wanted to. So that is available on the website. I wanted just to make sure that you knew that that was an option. We in our final minute, we're a little long today. I'm sorry about that, but we're just going to finally close in a prayer. We're going to invite back Margot to lead us just to thank God for all that he has been doing today. So Margot.
Thanks, everyone. Let's pray in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
God, we praise you for this conversation, that you gifted us with all the right gifts to do your work in the world. We ask that you strengthen us to focus only on your voice, on your mission for us in our parishes and in our lives. We ask you, God, to give us courage to say no to distractions or what would draw our attention from the work that you call us to do. Give us steadfastness. Let us rest on the truth of your call, God, and your power to make it happen. We lift our parishes and our ministries to you, and we can't wait to see what you do with us and through us. Come, Holy Spirit, fill our parishes and our hearts with your love. We ask you this and all things through Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bye.